Functional behavioral health is a personalized, patient-centered healthcare model that focuses on identifying and treating the root causes of chronic illness rather than just managing isolated symptoms. Rather than just trying to attend to somebody's mood or their cognition or, let's try to address this little symptom over here that is bringing you in today. Let's look at what's causing that symptom. Imagine that. Depression is a physiological issue. It is not just a mood issue. It is not just a thinking issue. It is an integrated physiological issue. When we experience emotions, where do those come from? Those come from a soup, if you will, of different neurochemicals and the activation of different receptors. There's a physiological basis to it. When we think, we have to use our neurological system. We have to activate our brain regions. There are physiological underpinnings to how we think, how we feel, what we see, how we interpret stuff. So, depression, back to what I was saying, is a physiological issue with evidence of inflammation, both systemic and neuroinflammation. And one of the most common or prevalent underlying correlates to depression is inflammation. If you've watched other courses that I've done, you know that when we are chronically stressed, our stress hormone, cortisol, loses its effectiveness. Now, normally, cortisol is a powerful steroid. So when we're in the fight or flight zone, it suppresses inflammation. It helps mobilize resources for energy. When we are chronically stressed for one reason or another, not just emotionally stressed, when there is chronic stress, the body, the receptors are regularly exposed to cortisol. And just like anything else, the body starts to develop a resistance to it. We have people that are insulin resistant. We have people that develop a resistance to alcohol. They need to drink more in order to get the same high. And we have the same resistance to cortisol. Our body is designed to operate within a very narrow window, a homeostatic window, as they say. And when we are regularly bombarding those receptors, when they're getting overactivated, either too intensely or for too long, they're going to adjust. They're going to downregulate, which means cortisol loses its ability to suppress inflammation. Additionally, when we're chronically stressed, we start to see other changes in the body that we're going to talk about that contribute to inflammation in the body. When we have inflammation in the body, for whatever reason, it makes our blood-brain barrier more permeable. So some of those toxins can get into the brain area and cause neuroinflammation and activation of the microglia, which are basically the immune cells in the brain. So that was a lot of blah, blah, blah to explain, I guess, that the depression often has an underlying inflammatory component. And until we address that underlying inflammation, the entire system's going to be out of whack. In depression, we also see a fair amount of people with HPA axis dysregulation. Now, I prefer to say sympathetic nervous system dominance, but basically the stress response is out of whack. The person may feel flat, depressed, apathetic, anhedonic, whatever word you want to use, most of the time. And when they get triggered, it takes a lot to get them triggered, but when they get triggered, they go to from 0 to 250. We see metabolic disruption in a lot of people with depression. Why? Because stress triggers the stress response and the release of insulin, which can lead and chronically can lead to insulin resistance. But inflammation itself is a stressor that can trigger the release of insulin, which can compound that bathing of the receptors in insulin and contribute to insulin resistance. So we start to see insulin resistance, metabolic disruption in people with depression. Very common. As a consequence, if you will, of chronic activation of that sympathetic nervous system. And it doesn't have to, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll continue with this slide and I'll say that stuff later. The gut-brain axis is also altered when we're stressed. The little critters that are in our gut that are designed to break down food and make the components so we can have the hormones and neurotransmitters and nutrients that we need to survive. We have a whole different crew that comes in, and they will make different neurotransmitters, and they create a different environment that is actually toxic to the healthy, relaxed microbiome. When we have persistent stress, as a result of those changes, we're making less serotonin. We're also seeing the mucus lining of our gut become thinner, and the junction between the cells in our gut become looser. So we start having leaking of toxins through our gut into our system that go up into our brain that cause, not only do we have systemic inflammation, but we have neuroinflammation. Guess what? That's a stressor. It's going to trigger the stress response. So see how we really have to look at this underlying loop, because if we don't address the underlying inflammation, if we don't address the underlying physiological contributors in addition to the others, we're going to continue to have somebody who struggles with inflammation and stress and dysregulation.